Cody.
Alan, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you. Happy New Year. How are you, Cody?
Happy New Year. Real good.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, since we're limited time, appreciate your time as always. So two questions. The first one is I'm getting ready to start a large farm in my neighborhood that I own here in Long Beach. And I've ran the data. I'm looking at about 1,500 houses, 1,000 owner occupied, about 500 or so absentee owners. Do you think 16 to 17 touches is a little too much on the neutral side or a little too low to touch them, since this will be my brand new farm that I'm starting soon?
Yeah. So brand new Geographic Farm, 1,500 doors. 1/3 of those doors are out-of-state owners.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. What's the turnover rate?
3.47, so about 3.5.
So how many units turned last year? 10% would be 150, so about 65 units?
Yeah, it sounds about right. Yeah, right around there.
Like, I didn't finish high school, so I shouldn't do math in public, but about 65, maybe 70 units, somewhere in there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So a couple things. Number one, when I look at geographic farms, I'd like to hit 7 to 9%. That's a tough number to find. And that usually puts you in areas or neighborhoods or subdivisions that a lot of agents don't choose to farm. However, it's indicative of the relationships that people have. It's not indicative of who they are. It's just indicative of the relationships they have. Like if you go to my neighbors and you say, hey, do you know an attorney? Most of my neighbors will say yes. If you go to my neighbors and you say, hey, do you know a great CPA? Most of them will say, yeah, I know a couple. Do you know a great stockbroker? Yeah. Do you know a wealth manager? You get what I mean? And so a lot of that has to do with the neighborhood. If you like the neighborhood, did you say you live in it?
Yeah, I own and live in it.
Owning and living in it would be one reason to go below 7 or 8%. Like, all right, I already live here. All right. Yep. Saying I'm an expert here is no longer just a nice thing to say. Like, I live here. Nothing worse than driving past somebody else's sign at your neighbor's house.
Yeah, of course.
Like there's nothing worse than that. To go back to your question, number one, best practices for geo farming usually indicate one touch every 17 to 22 days. So about every 3 weeks. And so if you look at every 3 weeks, that's going to put you somewhere about 16 touches a year. If you want to do it and do it well, that's the way I would do it. If I couldn't afford to do that, I wouldn't touch it at all. If I couldn't do a touch every 3 weeks or even a little bit faster than that, like right now, if I'm you and I'm going to pick up that farm, I'm going to look for a touch about every 12 or 14 days.
Okay.
And I'm going to do that just for the first few months. And I'm going to wean it into about every 21 days. If you do that, and then you add in 2 or 3 events, like maybe it's an organized garage sale. It's a corny idea, but you get my point. An organized garage sale. I like farming and geographic farming when there's a reason to be in touch with people beyond just, hey, remember me, hey, remember me, hey, remember. There's nothing wrong with that. I just don't like it. And so like you figure out like your farm and you go, cool, here's all the news about the new school system being built or the new school going up or just excuses to be in touch, right? Here's the road construction happening. Great excuse. 12 to 14 days for the first 3 or 4 months. And then maybe you back it off to about every 20 or 21 days. A 3 to 4% conversion rate though. Like you're still going to have that problem because you're not going to create sales. You're going to capture sales or grab them in your net. So if there's 65 units available to go and earn, notice I didn't say get, there's no getting, just earning, right? If there's 65 sales to go and earn, then you have to be realistic and you have to think, okay, if I could capture 10% of those, that's 6.5 units. And I would look and find out, and a lot of agents overlook this, go and do the homework on the MLS and figure out, is there an agent? Is there somebody who captures 10 or 15%? Is there truly an expert there already?
Yes, there is one that has 10% market share and she lives in a few blocks away. But that's really, I think, who my only, on the MLS, it would be my only competition. So there is a 10%.
Your competition is whoever has the 65 sales.
Nobody there has 65 sales.
Well, no, but I need you to hear this.
Okay.
Let's say that those 65 sales are made up of 58 realtors. Your competition is 58 realtors. Yeah. I would almost prefer that one of them had 25 or 30%. And my job was just to benchmark and trend one up whatever that person's doing and earn all that business. I would almost prefer that road. than 58 individual relationships. I mean, neither one is good, neither one is bad, right? One of the things that you might consider doing is thinking, okay, if I can capture 10%, that puts me at 6.5 units. I'm going to go and I'm going to knock down those 6.5 units. I will tell you, and again, something that's overlooked in geo farming, how much money will you reinvest directly back into the farm? If you can pull it off, my man, if you can pull it off, what I would do is I would take 50% of the gross commission, not net, the gross.
Yes.
Treat it like, I mean, if you and I were starting a business, like a real one, everything we would sell, we'd go, cool. What's the most amount of money I can put right back into the company? What's the most amount of reinvested profit or reinvested earnings, depending on how you want to look at the world, right? So if you could put 50% back, if you could put 100% back in, put 100% back in. But put it back into the business and use that to drive it further, use that to drive it higher. But the question would be, what does the person doing 10% currently do? Mailings, cards, does he or she knock on doors? Have they lived there forever? Like, what is it? And then you benchmark and trend it. Like, do they always do an amazing job of just listeds and just solds? As ridiculous as they are, they still work. People still look at them. People still watch them. Snail mail and getting things in your mailbox like has gone through the roof in the last 12 to 14 months because companies know that only 12 or 14% of emails get opened. Doesn't mean that emails aren't good. You might also consider looking and figuring out, is there a like a Facebook group for the neighborhood? If there's not, can you create one? If there is, that doesn't mean you can't create another one. It just means what would I need to create that would provide value that isn't already being provided. There's 100 ways to do it. Geo farming. The great geo farming agents will tell you it's a lot of money and a lot of time, and be careful while they're spending more and more and more money on geo farming, right? Somebody else will be like, yeah, I did that, didn't work. And they sent out 2 or 3 mailers and then stopped.
I see. Great information, Cody. As always, appreciated.
Last thing that you might consider, check out my friends at likely.ai. My man, Brad, who owns likely.ai. Don't know if they do well in your area. Some areas of the country, data is harder to get for them, but they're as good as it can be. They're as good as I've ever seen. You could give him the zip code or give him the area, and they'll go through and they'll roll through the artificial intelligence and figure out, okay, who's more or less likely. So if you only have so many funds, who's more or less going to get, or who's more or less likely to list is going to dictate who you spend the funds or invest the funds on. If you choose to knock on doors, you could knock on doors, like people still do it. I understand the COVID issue and you decide how you want to go there, right? But you have to do something. At some point, it's just like an MREA. You're moving them from a targeted haven't met to a met at some level. And your goal is a targeted haven't met to a met. Once they hit a met, your next goal is to move them from a met database person to an allied resource. And the reason the allied resource is so incredibly important is that usually allied resources are an HR manager who works at a company, or a boss somewhere, or the person in your database that somehow just knows everybody, right? Like, those are great allied resources. They can send you business, send you deals. The reason that an allied resource in a geographic farm is important, though, is that you want to find the people that will give you the tips and be like, you know what, we don't want to sell or buy, but we know somebody who does. And those are the ones you want. Like, you want the busybodies in the neighborhood. And so you got to figure out, who are they? And you might, if there's Facebook groups, or if there's the different neighborhoody style groups that are available, the ones who are chattering the most and talking the most, they're usually those people.
Thanks, Cody. I really appreciate it.
Then the next thing I would do is think about all the silly things you can do to brand. And branding might be as silly as dog waste bags.
Oh, nice.
Right? It might be as silly as I saw an agent who I thought was brilliant, who paid for a little station which had like a box and had dog waste bags, and it said sponsored by XYZ real estate company. And I like the marketing aspect of it. Like, how do I do it and pull it off and make it funny? Like, how do I make fun of myself? Grab my bag, sell your house. Like, I don't know, something ridiculous, right? I like things that are funny. But think outside the box around this.
Okay, I will, Cody.
All right.
Thanks
I know it's
again,
been 10 minutes. I hope that answers your questions. It's been my
It did.
pleasure. I'm always a phone call or an email or a direct message away. I wish you all the best, man.
Thanks, Cody. I
All right.
appreciate it as always.
Happy New Year.
Take care, buddy. Thank you. Happy New Year. Bye.